From one Super League to another, there seems to be a conversation every day this week about who's going to be playing where in the future. Celtic and Rangers have been touted by some outlets in the media to be interested in joining some form of British Super League, which would see both Celtic and Rangers take part in the English football pyramid, to finally link up with that age-old conversation. Can they handle it in the big leagues? It's kind of doing the rounds on social media at the minute. We're going to talk about it all in this video. I'm mostly using this video to give my opinion on it all. Of course, I don't think there's much here that is concrete to suggest this will ever happen. That's one thing we'll also talk about, the likelihood of this happening, the actual possibility of it happening, alongside mostly my opinion. We'll get the intro out the road and we'll talk about that. So if you've been on Twitter over the past 48 hours, you've probably seen a lot of stories from different news outlets and different media sources claiming that Celtic and Rangers have an interest or a possibility of joining up with English elite clubs to be part of some British Super League. Now this all comes off the back of the disaster that was the European Super League that we've seen this week. What a story that was, by the way. In 24 hours we had, it was happening to it wasn't happening, with clubs dropping out, with Florentino Perez saying that people my age weren't interested in football, and everything else in between. What an interesting day that was. Once we seen football dying and resurrect itself in the space of a couple of days. True biblical stuff. But off the back of that, we're now seeming to be having this conversation, which is one that, once again, in kind of relation to the video I made on the European Super League the other day, one that I'm not too best pleased to hear about myself. But there has been talk from a few sources that Celtic and Rangers wanted this to happen off the back of the European Super League fallout. If that was to go and happen, then Celtic and Rangers would be very interested in taking a move down to the Premier League. Of course, they would be outside, the top six wouldn't be there, they would be without them and the company, but they would be leading the way as the kind of biggest clubs in that English football pyramid if this was to happen post-European Super League. Of course, that isn't happening now, and I don't imagine this was ever something that was realistically going to happen. It's a conversation that seems to come up like a European Super League every few years. We talk about what will happen if this ever happens, what will happen if Celtic and Rangers ever play in England, where will they place, how will they do in the Premier League. It's something that constantly arises on social media, and I've spoke about it a few times on YouTube, and one that I'm really just fed up and tired of talking about, to be honest. Now, nowhere in any of these articles, if you do enough digging or enough of these radio stories or anything like that, nowhere does it say that this is going to happen. Nowhere does it say there's genuine proof of a suggestion put forward. It's all very much speculation. I don't feel like there's enough substance there. Ultimately, it's not going to happen. It's not. I think we can all come down to realise and accept that, and I think the majority of us will be happy to realise and accept that, if not, a vast majority of us. But it's certainly something that creates an intriguing conversation, because there's certainly, without me being a massive fan of it and being in fact entirely against it, there is definitely positives to this, more positives than I think there is to a European Super League. It's something that a lot of people might actually be an advocate for, more so down south than up here. It's something that has always been a mind-boggler, because you get the arrogant set of English supporters who like to insist that Celtic and Rangers are nothing clubs, nothing football teams, and would do nothing in England. But I think there is a big portion of English supporters who would love to see Celtic and Rangers down in England, just for the fan base, the competition, the sheer size of the clubs. And they can admit the fact that they are big clubs. So I think there is a portion down there who want that, but I'm entirely against it, and I know it's not going to happen, but let's give my opinion to it all. Let's talk about why. Now, I can't deny that being in England would allow Celtic a chance to fill themselves up with cash, get to a point where they're perhaps challenging in Europe once again. Maybe someday down the line we'd be able to say they could challenge for the Champions League, whether it be 10 or 20, 30 years. Being in England and having the funds that are available down there would allow that to happen. That's marvellous. My dream is to one day see Celtic lift a European Cup, something that is most likely not going to happen while playing in Scotland. But I think that sometimes the pride of your own football team, the pride for your country and your football association, all the rest of it, has to come a bit above that. Now, that mostly just lies alongside Celtic. It's not like I have an undying pride for the SFA or anything like that. Let's not get it twisted. But I'm proud of Celtic Football Club. I love Celtic Football Club for being the club that I've grown up with, for the club that we've worked hard to be over our near 150-year existence. I kind of touched on this in the Super League video, and a lot of the points from that video remain relevant to this one. I don't really like the idea, and it doesn't sit well with me, that you do everything that you do as a football club to get the point that you're at. You go through all that hard work and history, you have managers, players and fans who bleed for the game and kind of put everything on the line to get to the point you're at, to establish yourself as that football club, to win all those trophies and such, just to get up and leave it behind. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that at all. My dad's 74 years old. People always go, wow, but he's 74 years old. He's grew up watching Celtic play through their best and worst. He's seen it all basically. He's seen the European Cup, he's seen 9 in a row twice, he's seen the 90s, he's seen it all. But he's seen it all in Scotland, and a lot of fans will share that. We've built who we are off the back of our success in Scotland, and I don't see why just one day we should suddenly up sticks and move south for the sake of money. I think there is a touch of hypocrisy in there. It's kind of against everything Celtic are for. Yes, modern football is evolving to the sense where football is all around money, which is a shame. The game is dying in a sense because of that, and we almost did have the death of the game just this week. But I think the Celtic Football Club should never give up their morals, their history and everything that we've stood for, just because there is a chance of being a more lucrative footballing team, because it can add more money to the pockets of Dermot Desmond and the Celtic board. Ultimately, they probably don't care what we think, and that's what they'd want anyway. If it was ever an opportunity, I'm expecting Dermot Desmond to jump at it, in all honesty. But I do feel like there's a slight hypocrisy behind it for a club like Celtic. And I would hate to see Celtic and Rangers give up the Scottish game to head south. Ultimately, it would be the death of our nation's game. I don't mean to look down and kind of... I don't like ever giving the Farmers League treatment or slagging someone's league off, because it annoys me when it happens to the Scottish game. But look at Wales, for example. Wales' two biggest clubs are Cardiff and Swansea, and even you can go around and look at some clubs like Wrexham and such as well. But Cardiff and Swansea, the two standout teams, they both play in England. What has that done for the Welsh game? The Welsh game is nothing. No one talks about the Welsh game. Nobody really cares. And I know a couple of years ago, I think it was, who was it? One of the Welsh teams, it might be New Saints or something, beat Kilmarnock in the Europa League qualifiers. I know that happened. That was embarrassing for our game. But in general, Welsh football doesn't really get spoken about. A lot of Welsh people don't really have an interest as well. I don't want Scottish football to ever become that. I think for the sake of our game, Celtic and Rangers should be trying their best to make it as lucrative for the teams around us without, leaving them and going down south. I think a lot of people will be saying you should only care about your club, fuck the rest of them. But in terms of a footballing nation, for the sake of our future and young guys coming through and people who want to grow up and play the game, our best chances of producing the best are by keeping Celtic and Rangers in this league. There is a severe risk of kind of turning football to the side for a lot of younger guys, a lot of younger people who are going to be born over the future generations. If Celtic and Rangers aren't there, a lot of people might not care because the same attraction's not there. Ultimately, Celtic and Rangers are Glasgow-based clubs. You've still got big cities everywhere, and of course, people that support Hibs and Hearts might fancy the idea of being able to go and win league titles and that. They might enjoy that. Yes, it would maybe make it fresh for them, but how long is it until no one cares and nothing's on the TV? And the money isn't coming into the game, and players don't want to come up to Scotland because there isn't Celtic and Rangers there, and there isn't the same outlets. It's just never really sat well with me. A lot of people also at the same time suggesting that maybe we even scrap stuff like the English and Scottish League Cup and bring in a sort of British Cup that everybody will take part in. I feel like that is kind of an impossibility in a sense, because of I don't think TV providers will be wanting to show St Johnstone against Liverpool or St Montrose against Man U, and I know you can say that with perhaps the same games down in England, but they have their whole cup magic thing, and I just never see it happen. I feel like it's impractical for so many different reasons, trying to organise that into a season with people having to maybe travel from Aberdeen down to Brighton. There's so many things you'd have to sit down and lay out about that. I just don't feel like that would be on the table. The main conversation is always going to be put Celtic and Rangers into the Premier League, into the English pyramid system. You can say all you like about this British Cup and all the rest of it, and it could work because of this. Over in Germany they travel further and blah blah blah, but there's so many things to sit down and iron out with. You've got to remember, every league football club and the supporters and their owners and their staff and all the rest of it, there's so much to iron out there that I don't think it'd be as simple as what some people are making it out to be. Ultimately, I don't think we need to strive to be a Premier League club. That I have said time and time again, for as much as I watch and enjoy the Premier League, to me it's not the best league in the world. It's nothing special. I don't buy into that propaganda. You know, I feel like there's some cheek when you get a West Ham fan, and we've been through this. Look, you've only got to go and look at my past videos to have my opinions, and I was thinking about even making a Celtic versus English fans free video off the back of this, but you can go back and watch those two videos and anything else to get my points on this. But I feel there's some cheek when a West Ham fan tries to say something about Celtic. I don't need to go through all of that again. You know my thoughts pretty well, and you know what's right and what's wrong. You know what's fact and what's not. Celtic and Rangers are, outside of Man United and Liverpool, the biggest clubs in this country. You know, that is fact. We don't need to go down to England to join in that league, to be Celtic and Rangers, to be as big as we are. We're big football clubs. We're some of the biggest football clubs with some of the best history. So, you know, I'm not too fussed, to be quite honest with you. I think that there's certainly some positives that you can say about going down to England. It all comes back to finances. I enjoy my game. My game isn't saturated. My game isn't dictated by money. I watch Celtic because I enjoy watching Celtic, and then because I enjoy our league and I enjoy our fans and I enjoy everything that we've had since the day I started supporting them till right now. I don't feel like there's any boredom in the game. As I said, my dad's 74 and he's never once said he'd like to fancy going down to England. And I think a lot of fans will keep that will share that mindset. Anyway, I don't think there's anything to worry about. As I said right at the top of the video, I think it's all just nonsense. There's no really any substance to it. It's something that's just going to stir up some clicks. We're going to be in Scotland, lads, don't worry about it. But we'll talk about it anyways, videos and views. Anyway, let me know what you're thinking about it. See you next time.